Okay, we're going to move into the next section. Could I have your attention, please? Coffee break is coming up after this next session. Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew Wister, Chair of Gerontology. Just before we move into the next panel session, chaired by Gloria Gutman, I would just like to make a couple of quick comments. First of all, as you know, this is the 23rd John Friesen lecture series, which we've housed here at the Gerontology Research Center and Department for several decades. And there's a picture of John on the last page of your program, the inside cover of your program, rather. And I'd like you to turn to that, and I would like to have us all recognize John, who is watching this from above. We lost him just a little over a year ago, and I think it's very important for us to recognize his contributions to this very important lecture series. He was the benefactor and founder, and he gave his life to the area of continuing education needs, and certainly developed a tremendous interest in the areas of aging. And he was a leader in adult education, both within Canada and internationally, and really contributed to the development of aging at SFU in a significant way. So we want to acknowledge him, and we'd also like to acknowledge John's family, who have also been very supportive. And do we have Melanie here? Right here. Hi, Melanie. Melanie Friesen. Could you just stand for one moment? Could we give a round of applause? John and his family never missed a lecture series, and Melanie is here on behalf of the family, and we're very thankful of that. Thank you, Melanie. And one other quick note, is Lorna Court here? Was she able to make it? Lorna? I know Lorna wasn't feeling that well. She had talked to me yesterday. She thought she might make it. We have a number of other benefactors of the Gerontology Research Center and the department, and Lorna is one of the recent ones, and I just wanted to mention her and thank her for her support. So right now I'd like to turn things over to Gloria Gutman, who's going to chair the next panel session. Thank you.
In this session, we're going to hear about some of the services that are available in British Columbia at this present time to enable people to age in place. And I think it has been very interesting to have the American perspective and to hear about the village concept and about co-housing. We also want to think about the services we already have and what they can offer to people. So I would like to call our first speaker up, who's going to talk about the United Way Better at Home program.
Anyway, my name is Christien Kaaij. I am the Provincial Project Manager of United Way's Better at Home program. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the program and a little bit about the history. And I was very inspired by the speeches yesterday and this morning, and I am sure giving a bit of the Canadian perspective. And I think many of the concepts we've heard are integrated in the Better at Home program. And I was when I was listening yesterday to Charles or Chuck Durrett, and he was saying, like, I think staying longer at home or independent, it's a setup for failure. In a way, I do agree a little bit. But the reality of it all is that we don't have enough alternatives, and not everybody is in the position to move, and not for everybody it actually would be the best situation. And as our morning speaker said, Andrew Sharlock, that some people want to stay in their neighborhood because they have the connections there. And if there's no other housing alternatives or co-op alternatives in their neighborhood, they would lose a lot if they move. So I'm going to talk about Better at Home. I will start my timer because I got some strict orders and I want to make sure that I follow those. Okay. There we go. So Better at Home was funded in 2012 by the government of BC. First, we received 15 million. After a year, they said, let's add another 5. It started in actually more or less in 2009, when we heard from our planning tables. And United Way, as you might know, has been funding planning tables for a while, our senior planning tables. And I see many people from the planning tables here, which is great. And they are our eyes and ears on the ground. And they've talked to us about the lack of services to help people stay longer independently at home. So when government approached us and said, hey, what's going on? Beverly Pittman, my colleague at the United Way, said, well, there's a lack of non-medical home support services. So we started in 2009 with a pilot project called Kaaij, Community Action for Seniors Independent, 5 communities. Based upon that success, we were able to secure funding. And while Kaaij was a partnership, we still see this project as being a partnership, although the funding now comes solely by the government. And we as United Way, we provide the management. And some people ask, so how is United Way involved? Well, I was hired as a provincial project manager, and I was charged with the role of rolling this out all over the province. And United Way has, as many of you know, an immense network and a lot of experience working with not-for-profits. So building on our network, on our partners, on our relationship with the communities, our relationship with health authorities, with advocacy groups, we were able to reach out to all of them in the province and get this program up and running as fast as we, I think, possibly could have done. Oh, there we go. Is it this one? Oh, with enter? Okay. So, Better at Home has a goal to help seniors remain independent and connected in their community. Really important, the independent part. So only offering service if it really is helpful, and also the connection, really making sure that people are connected with the people that provide those services. It's focusing on the simple non-medical home support services. So really the not medical support services, which is of course a very tricky line because people don't have boundaries there. You know, you need services, and that's quite easily then, if you need more services, goes into the medical side. But with the program we do, we try to keep it in that little box, also to make sure that people stay safe and the volunteers that provide the service are actually capable of providing those services. It's linked to all the community needs and based on the assets that are already in the community. And Kate Menser nicely said it as well, that in Mission we really looked at what is already there, what is missing in this whole field, and what do we need to build upon. So that means that all our services look different in the province. There are some, of course, common factors, which I will talk about shortly, but in general the services that are provided are different. And also the way services are provided differs per community. Most of the services are provided by volunteers, but there is a mix with paid staff and a mix with contractors as well. So keep that in mind if you hear somewhere in the province Better at Home, and you drive maybe to another town and you hear Better at Home, or even here in Vancouver where there are 8 different programs. Every program is slightly different how it is organized. Because we really didn't want to duplicate, and we really had as a goal to integrate as much as possible with the things that were already there and were already really working well. So some common elements. Each program is actually provided by a non-profit organization, or non-profit organization that could be also, in some cases, a municipality. They then decide how they deliver the services. And I want to talk a little bit about that local non-profit organization and the services they deliver, how that was determined. We connected with all our, as I said, with our United Way network, but also all the people we know from the health authorities, from advocacy groups in the province, to help us determine what are areas in the province that really could use this program. We know in general everybody could benefit from a Better at Home program, but our funding was limited. When we had identified a community, we would hire a local community developer who would go in and then really did on-the-ground research, connected with those seniors. Because one of the core things that we wanted to do was that making sure that this program was senior-centered, really based on the interests and needs of these seniors. So connect with the seniors, and then also connect with all the local service providers, get their input, and help that whole community decide what would be the criteria for an organization that would be best placed to deliver those services. And it wasn't always an easy situation, because often, of course, as you can imagine, they looked at us, help us make the decision, or make it a competitive process. But we refrained from that. We didn't make it a competitive process. We let the community work it out, sometimes with some extra on-the-ground facilitation. And things we heard back quite often after a year in situations where it was a bit of a struggle for a community to determine who would be best positioned. We heard back that all the communities at the end really appreciated it, that we didn't go in and solve the problem for them, that they had to solve it together and figure out who was best positioned to provide those services. We also heard that in some areas, the sector hadn't been talking together. Never. They never had a reason to come together and really look at the landscape of the senior services in their area. And it really strengthened the community to look at the seniors' problems in a different way. So that helped us as well with integration. And our focus is, as said, building up what's there. So we also send our community developers with the mission out in the community, make sure you connect with the vision of family practices, make sure you connect with the community response networks if they are available, make sure that you talk to the health authorities. And now, when our programs are funded, we say exactly the same to our programs on the floor, on the ground. Make sure you connect with what's already there. And one way how they do it is that all Better at Home programs have a local advisory committee. And I see a few members here in the room, which is really great. And I have to mention that we also have a provincial advisory committee, and at least one of the members is here as well. So they help us more with strategic directions. But those local advisory committees are really looking at, are we still answering the needs of the seniors? Are we still responsive enough? Is this program still suitable? Is it accessible for our seniors? And all the things that play on the local level. Another thing that is common in the program is that there is a sliding scale. Affordability and accessibility was really important for us. And we thought that we could, learning from Kaaij, that when we would incorporate a sliding scale fee-for-service model, that we could actually make it better accessible for everybody. So how it works, people that have only OAS or GIS, so are on the lowest income, they get all the services for free. People that have an income above average, they have to pay a market rate. And as you can imagine, the market rate does vary in the area where you are. In the middle, there is subsidy, and we leave it up to the organizations. We give some guidelines, but we leave it up to the organizations to determine how they want to do it. As a provincial office, we don't say they have to do means testing. We didn't want to put a whole administrative system in place, maybe to catch a few people that would not be honest. We leave it up to the local organization. So some had already means testing in place, so they use means testing to make sure that to see where people fit in. Others just ask. When I say people have to pay market rate for services, it doesn't mean that there aren't services that are free for everybody. Again, that is something that we lead up to our organizations. They can determine if they want to ask for a price, and you can imagine that services like the friendly visiting or the grocery shopping or quite often transportation services, those are done by volunteers, and quite often those are free or with a very low fee compensation for the mileage, for example. But services like housekeeping services, they are on the more expensive side, and quite often they are actually provided by contractors or by staff members. They are market rate. Other thing that we said is mandatory. Volunteers need to have a criminal record check. We want to make sure that people are safe. And we have a quite extensive monitoring and learning program in place. Monitoring on the side that people have to provide us with quarterly data. We do quarterly check-ins. If needed, we are available more often to provide support. And when I say we, I have an awesome team behind me, 2 field coordinators that help programs set up and that are there for day-to-day support. And then we ask them to provide us with a 9-month narrative of how things are going that helps them set up for the next year for the new application, because we do provide grants on a year-to-year basis. And then they have to provide us with a 12-month financial report. Then we do a lot of learning. We know that we don't know it all. We for sure don't know it all, and I'm learning every day. But we know there's so much knowledge in the field and with the people that are there that we set up a community of practice. There is an online hub, so people can go there, ask questions, post resources. A lot of sharing goes on there. We coordinate bi-monthly telephone conferences. They're peer-led. We just make sure that they can phone in, and then they just talk. The coordinators of each program, they go and connect and ask questions from their peers. Then we make sure that we put on webinars on topics of interest or things that we hear. And also every year we bring everybody together to more in-depth learn from each other, but also provide some courses and do some more face-to-face learning. One thing that is not on there is that we do make it mandatory that each program has a program coordinator, so that there is one person, and it could be sometimes 2 or 3 persons that share that task, but that it's not something that you do, I think it's off the side of your desk, that's the Canadian expression or the English expression, but that someone is really dedicated to do these services, because we hear quite often that these services have been done for a long time, but it was no one's really job or focus. But you need someone, as we've seen in all the other models, like in the village model, you need someone that actually coordinates it. You need someone that brings those volunteers together. And indeed, like I think it was said over there, volunteers don't manage themselves. It costs. So different than the village model, we do provide every program with subsidy, with funding, with a grant. And that grant is mainly to cover the cost of that coordinator. And of course, then there is some portion that organizations use for those programs. If they can't find volunteers, they have to contract out. How that model is a bit in balance as well is that people that are on the higher pay scale, they actually provide some money back into the program. And if you have all your staffing costs and operation costs covered, that money directly goes back into additional services. So that's actually something that we see happening, which is really great. So where are we now? Started in 2012. I was hired April 2012. We got started almost right away, started with our community development in October. January 2013, we had our first 7 programs funded. And we just funded our last few programs in April 2014. So as you can imagine, if you're funded, you're not operating and running yet. And some programs are fast. They've done it for many years. They add, with the help of this funding, maybe a few services. Others start from the ground up. Some are up and running in 3 months. Some take 6, 9 months to really get started. So keep that in mind when we go through a bit of the numbers. For now, we are a little bit at our status quo with the outroll. We want to keep it like this. I think I can say for certain that every community that has more than 10,000 people in BC or has more than 1,500 seniors has a Better at Home program at this time. There are some new projects that are going to explore other options, but I'll talk about that later. But that's it for now. So we're out of the community development engagement phase, now into the implementation phase. So who is... Oh, that was the wrong one. I'm actually not done yet, so let's go quickly. So quickly how, I think I have a few more minutes. Oh, 1 minute, wow. Okay, so who is enrolled in the program? We track. Different than the village model, we do see that a lot of people are on the low income scale. So 26%, 100% subsidy. 45% get between 30 and 70% subsidy. And these slides will be available, but there's also an annual report on our website. As you can see, our services are rapidly increasing every quarter, which is expected, of course, because our programs are just coming on board. With the purple is light housekeeping. That's services that are demanded the most. And then second is the transportation services, which are in the red. Who is providing those services? Mainly volunteers, but as you can see, the purple broom. Housekeeping services is mainly by staff or paid contractors, but 38% of the services is housekeeping services. So, a bit of the future. We are going to explore how we best serve our rural communities. We see some tremendous things happening in our smaller communities, but the smallest communities we're serving is about 2,000 people. There are also challenges, so we want to make sure that our program actually is really suitable for rural communities. So we're going to start probably 3 pilots in the next year. We want to look more at training and tools, making sure that our volunteers are really capable of providing those services. Looking closer at integration, going to look again at our funding model and re-evaluate the baskets of service. Having an evaluation on the way, that's our local, like our United Way commissioned evaluation. We expect our first report to the United Way in August from our first 16 sites, so it's an initial evaluation, really looking about implementation and early outcomes. And then the Michael Smith Foundation is really looking at currently connecting with qualified researchers to make sure that we have a longer-term research, and that would be more like that is looking at more at the cost avoidance and the health and quality of life improvement. So I want to close with this. I think it's a great quote. I will read it out for the people that weren't there. So some of the seniors said, better at home. It's like having a friend come and visit, but your house looks great once they leave. Yeah, so housekeeping is really key. And it helps also people, if your house is clean, to invite people back into your home. So to break that cycle of isolation. That's it. Okay.
My name is Kara-Leigh Bloch, and I'm here with Senior Services Society. So I'm just going to get this set up. Hopefully it works for me. Perfect. All right. So yeah, thank you for having me here today. We've been hearing a lot about options, and in particular, we've been hearing about options for seniors that have multiple resources, where they're able to sort of choose their housing journey because they have some resources behind them to allow them to do so. Our agency, what I'm going to be speaking about today in our Housing Services Department, really focuses on working with seniors that have less resources, generally have less social contacts, and are in a position of trying to find housing or navigating the many avenues of the housing world here in BC. So what our mission is set out to do is to house and support seniors to live independently. And our vision is to have a community where everyone lives with dignity in a safe and a healthy and comfortable home. We have multiple services at our agency, and as Christien had been talking about Better at Home, we too are a Better at Home service provider. We launched our program about a year and a half ago, but I'm not going to be talking about all those programs, even though they are, as Christien said, really unique to the community that you deliver them in. We offer the light housekeeping, and we offer the medical and the non-medical transportation and support calls with our Better at Home program. But today we're going to focus on all of our housing services, and we've got 5 housing services that help support seniors choose housing, select housing. We're not a housing provider, as we've heard from all the different housing providers yesterday. We help navigate the housing sort of highway. So our first program is we have a housing counselor program. Now what this is you can call us, and we have a lady that's 8:30 to 4:30 Monday to Friday, kind of like a concierge service for housing, who can help offer information and guidance for you need to move and you're a vulnerable senior, you have low income, limited resources, and the eviction process maybe has gone about, and you need to move, and maybe you didn't win your arbitration. And she'll give you some options about what are your next steps. So in a year, we take about 1,200 new clients. 81% of those are over 55, generally. A lot of people are calling because they want to just have a change in housing. They are wanting to relocate from a home or an apartment, or they're simply just needing some information, but they want to be in control and they want to do the search completely on their own. So that's 667 information and referral. We're simply just giving them the information so they're empowered to do the next few steps on their own. Of that 1,200, we see about 527 seniors that are homeless or at risk. And we define at risk by if they're given an eviction notice and need to leave within 30 days, or they're fleeing abuse, or simply just living in a really unsafe living condition and they need to leave or relocate. And then there's people who are all over BC that call us and would really like some information that they'd like to have sent to them, mailed out. They're not the internet guru people, so they don't know how to go on our website or go online and look for housing. So we would send them a package mailed that's sort of tailored to them. I'm looking to move in Abbotsford for supportive housing. They give us the criteria. I have a pet. We all know how hard that can be. So we have a listing, and I'll get into that a little later, that we can send that custom information and mail it out to them. Our second program is sort of our largest program, and I'm sure many of you here today have heard of it. It's our flagship program. It's called the Seniors Temporary Housing Program. And here's a shot of one of the suites. They're private, furnished apartments. And it's sort of a unique situation. It's an alternative to a traditional homeless shelter. We all know that a homeless shelter is not the right place for a senior. And this was our attempt to develop a program that would offer an alternative to that traditional shelter. And we have the Hightowers here sitting in front of me who have a poster at the back talking about the seniors that are at risk and homeless. And they were part of a commissioned report in 2002 that really looked at homeless seniors and what are the needs and how are they unique than other homeless populations, and how are they unique from the rest of the seniors' world. And that from that report and some funding with the United Way, this program launched in 2007. So since 2007, we've been growing one apartment up to 20. And so it's a unique approach in that we are the leaseholder of about 20 units that are apartments, one bedrooms scattered throughout Burnaby, and we sublet to a senior who is homeless or at risk that is able to live independently in there and be at sort of in safe quarters, being not at harm to themselves and not at harm to others. So we've served we've housed permanently 133 people in that program since 2007. Mind you, we didn't have all 20 units in the beginning days. We've grown to the 20 units. And people stay with us about 4.5 months. So until they find their new housing and in the new community that they've chosen and that they've actively been engaged with us and our outreach worker that they get assigned, they get a one-on-one outreach worker. They will stay with us under our sort of partnership and friendship for 3 months until they get cozy in their new community. The cost effectiveness of this program has proven to be quite important in that when you look at the cost of a homeless shelter, it's about $100 a day that a person would impose on the system to host that person in the shelter. And we know we can do it at $20 a day. And we guarantee that they don't leave this apartment, this cozy, furnished, supportive friend situation until they get a new place to call home. So we're really proud of this program, and it's been a huge success, and we hope that it's here for years to come. Just some stats. It's primarily 67% males that are coming, and it's an average age of 63 years old. But we've seen anyone from 52 years of age to 83. Our third program is our housing outreach. So if someone who comes to us that's homeless or at risk and they're in the Lower Mainland, because that's pretty much the area we serve, and they are not suitable for our temporary housing program, the shelter alternative, or we simply have no space because we only have the 20 units and there's never a vacancy, there's always a bit of a wait list there, then the other alternative option that we can help as a support service provider in housing in the Lower Mainland is housing outreach. So again, it's a one-on-one outreach worker that works with them as a partner. It doesn't work for them, it works with the senior, and it really makes sure that they get their health stabilized, their financial situation stabilized. We have people who haven't done their taxes in maybe 10 years and they didn't get their guaranteed income supplement, so getting all those little fine ducks in a line, and then they can look at finding housing to find a new place to call home. So it's really about sometimes breaking the cycle of homelessness, but sometimes our outreach workers are really skilled in maintaining the housing. So the model of aging in place, staying where you want to be, it's building a relationship with the building manager, and kind of we're the insurance that the senior will actually be able to continue to live well in that apartment, because they know that they can call us and we can intervene or provide some sort of supports to the building manager or the senior tenant. So it's both for maintaining housing as well as finding new housing if in fact the eviction notice does fall through and they do need to relocate. So the shocking numbers here is that we're working with about 272 homeless seniors. That means they have no address behind their name in a year. And then the at-risk people that I was defining earlier, 255 of those folks in a year. So through this program, we have 2 outreach workers that work full-time all over the Lower Mainland. They've been able to house last year 129 seniors. We have a client that told us a couple of years ago who said, look, this moving, it's so stressful. It's actually more stressful for me than it was when I lost my husband. And so we take it really serious, and it really is a stressful journey for the multiple moves that some of these vulnerable seniors have to go through. So the goal is always, if they can stay where they are, let's keep them there if that's where they want to be. But if the reality is that they can't and they have to move on, then we need to find some alternative options. So our next program is sort of our attempt to, we can't be everywhere in the community. We're a small agency. We're based out of New Westminster. And it was our opportunity to build capacity in the community. So to kind of have extension staff and volunteers in the communities all over where you guys all are coming from today, to have trained housing counselors. So we offer this twice a year. It's a training program. It's an 8-week course. In total, you get 32 hours of training, and it's a comprehensive training on how to be a seniors housing counselor and how to navigate yourself, your friends, your community in the seniors housing highway. And so we offer these 2 sessions, and we rotate them all over the Lower Mainland. And we're able to just make sure that the community centers, there's hospital workers that show up, there's lots of shelter workers that come to this, volunteers, sometimes senior volunteers. So they have a training that they can bring back to their community to help seniors that are around them. So we have a next session coming up. If anyone's interested, we're running it in the fall. It's on September 30th, and it runs every Tuesday morning. And it's going to be held in Richmond at Courtyard Garden. And we always partner with a local housing provider who's offered to provide space in kind. And we provide the course, the facilitator, refreshments, and all the speakers that come through. BC Housing comes through, various agencies come through to make sure that the training is sort of A to Z on seniors housing. And our last program that we offer is provincial-wide, and all of you would have access to it via the internet. It's the Seniors Housing Directory of BC. And what it is, it's a listing of 1,750 listings of seniors housing, so everything from independent living, supportive living, mental health housing, and all the way to end-of-life care. So you can search the website by, if you just simply drove by and you saw a housing provider and you want to know, oh, I saw that Courtyard Gardens, I want to know what it is, you can search by the housing provider name, you can search by the building name, you can search by the area that you're looking to live in, the type of housing, and specific things like pets. Do they take pets, and what's the square footage of the building, or what year was it built? So we try and do our best. It's a big task, and we get 30,000 visitors a year, unique visitors, using this website. And like I said before, a housing counsellor who is able to do this for seniors across the province, if they don't have access to an internet, then they can call us, request it, and then we can do the search for them and mail it out to them. So seniors' homelessness is on the rise, and Andrew, one of the first Andrew this morning was talking about that and was talking about the need for more research. We know that that's the reality. The Metro Vancouver just did a homeless count on March 12th this year, 2014, and seniors represented 18% of that homeless population. So from 2002 to 2008, there was a 316% increase in street seniors' homelessness. But what's interesting is we know that we're serving 300 seniors in a year, and they're not the ones that are necessarily found on that one day. They have teams of volunteers going out in the lower mainland, counting the number of people that are homeless, street entrenched. We're seeing 300 seniors, and we know they're not the ones being counted on that day. Because the ones we're working with generally are the invisible homeless. And, they don't look necessarily like someone you might, traditionally, stereotypically think is homeless. They really just look like the guy next door. And the report that the high towers here in front of me and the poster that you can look back there is called Out of Sight, Out of Mind. So they're not the ones we see. They're not the ones you see sleeping on the street. They're not the classic homeless. So they're couch surfing, they're going hotel to hotel, spending all their income, so when they finally get an opportunity to look for a new place, they don't have that money for the pet deposit. They don't have that money for the first month, last month's rent. So they're really getting in a cycle of homelessness. And so... Thank you. And so what's the reason behind? Well, this is just our anecdotal information from the intakes that we do of our 1,200 clients in a year, is poverty, high cost of living, high rent, the old age security not going up, the cost of living continually going up, rent going up, as we heard yesterday from Sharon and Anna in the West End, at just awful rates. So we know that there's an extreme need for affordable, and what we mean by affordable is heavily subsidized housing for seniors in all the different levels. So from independent living to supportive housing to assisted living, as well as end-of-life care that's heavily subsidized for these lower income, fixed income seniors that are a smaller population, percentage of the population, but are ones that are getting heavily underserved in our communities. So we heard yesterday about all the options and the wait lists, PALS, the amazing model that they have there, but the reality is there's wait lists, and the vulnerable seniors that we're working with and that are vulnerable in our communities, they don't have enough time to wait till their name comes up on the wait list. So that's my presentation, just to shed light on the other side of the senior spectrum. And just that options need to be happening within the subsidized realm of housing. So thank you very much.
Our next speaker will be Tom Parker, and I'm just going to pull up his slides and be his assistant. He's going to be speaking to you from where he sits now.
Thank you for your assistance. While you're finding my slides, I'd like to relate a few details that have occurred in my recent history. This morning, for example, catching the Canada line from Richmond, get to the station and the elevator's out of order. So cross the tracks, go the other way to the next station, cross the tracks, go back again. Anyway, that is part of life when you are dealing with unknown circumstances, and I'm pleased to have a helper here to assist with the slide advancement. So I'll try to give you a signal to indicate when. Thank you. I'm very pleased to have the opportunity this morning to tell you a little bit about flex housing. And that is the trade name that CMHC applied to homes that adapt to life's changes. Today's objective is to show what features flex housing highlights and the impact that it can have and the effect, the appearance, and the result in terms of safety and usability for home residents. I'm going to insert a little bit of information here about the history of flex housing. Beginning in 1992 and through 94, the background information was derived from a series of focus groups across Canada, interviewing seniors and people with disabilities on issues that they felt needed to be addressed to make their aging in place as their physical conditions and abilities changed. Following that study, we used the information from the seniors and persons with disabilities to commission design drawings that would indicate the best kinds of floor plans and layouts that should be incorporated into a home when it's built. We also worked closely with one of the builders in British Columbia, Patrick Simpson, in his user-friendly home demonstration. The next step was to circulate a lot of the information that we'd gathered to over 100 builders coast to coast. And more than 60 entries were achieved from these builders by asking them to enter the design competition for flex housing. Judges in several centres across Canada selected the best 10, and these were semi-finalists and had the opportunity then to try to fine-tune their designs. The short story on the competition was that Nicholas Various, an architect from Ontario, was the winner, and his design was built and is still available for us to look at and go online to check at the Canadian Centre for Housing Technology at the National Research Council campus in Ottawa. We had winner from Edmonton, Ron Wickman, and McGill University, Avi Friesen. His project was built in Quebec at Forêt Marie Victorienne. Following the competition, a number of demonstration projects were constructed across the country, and there was a BCIT Home 2000 built on campus to assist the building trades folks to understand and to learn how to incorporate the features. There was a Richmond Flex House, Trondek Hekwin First Nations in the Yukon, Little Big Houses on Vancouver Island, Seabird Island First Nations, and in the Northwest Territories, the Yukon Housing Authority offered preferred mortgage rates to builders and home mortgagers if they provided the features. And we'll see photos from a project near Victoria in the slides in a moment. Thank you. We could go to the next one, please. Oh, how far are we here? Just a minute. Okay. So the basic features we've seen on screen here for a bit. That's good. Basically, entrance without the necessity of climbing steps. And as an aging person with a disability, I've used a wheelchair for the past 50 years. And when I was younger, I could quite easily visit family members, and they were a similar age at that time, and they had the strength to get me up the few stairs. And as we are all aging, I discovered the need for a ramp here onto the stage. And with due respect, most folks in the audience might have a little trouble lifting me up here. So one of the logistical folks tracked down a ramp, and it works quite well. But if the typical university theater that I remember from the old days, with tiered stairways and those kinds of things, then regardless of physical ability, someone, and as a lecturer, can easily accommodate and see everyone in the room and all of that kind of thing. Anyway, we're doing well. Thank you for accommodating me. So in addition to the entry and the kitchen, the bathroom is a big issue. Family change over time can be addressed by some of the features which can be incorporated at the time of construction. Okay, we'll come to the... So getting into the adaptable home, you need to have a level entrance. And it's not rocket science. It just means the door frame has to be set down into the floor trusses and floor joist, and then you have your flush threshold. We have occasional rainy issues in Vancouver, Richmond, BC, so protection from the weather of the exterior doorway is an issue as well. Okay, we can go to the next one, please. To provide vertical access, we can't all live in rancher single-story homes. It's not realistic with the cost of property, and with townhouse construction and that kind of thing quite prominent in our urban centers. Vertical access is an issue. But the entry closet can be designed to accommodate future installation of a vertical lift quite economically. Both the initial construction is more economical and certainly cheaper than trying to renovate, and is workable, provided on the other floors you have storage space stacked one above the other. And the other preliminary decision is on the part of the architect and the builder to ensure that the elevator is located and oriented in a way that the floor joist orientation is such that you have minimal interruption of that. And these can be prepared so that it's quite an easy task to cut a hole and support the floors as needed. The other small aspect of that is many of the vertical lifts require a bit of underneath clearance. So the floor slab in the basement or the crawl space can be pre-designed to accommodate that. Next, please. So we saw the modest hallway. A nice spacious entrance like this one obviously would be quite easy to accommodate vertical access in a closet. Also, please note in the image we have a couple of other safety features illustrated there. The side lights, the windows on each side of the door, permit the occupant to observe a visitor before opening the door. And the lintel above the door can be pre-wired in case a future electric door opener is needed. And in the intervening years, that plug-in can be used for Christmas lights. Now we can move on to the kitchen. And I'll call your attention to the little white panel on the fascia of the edge of the counter. That is where some of the control switches are located for the range hood, for the fan, for the lights, and some plug-ins for appliances. Plugging in your coffee maker is easier when you don't have to reach across a 2.5-foot counter to the back wall. but also on the back wall there's extra plug-ins built in behind there, and then you don't have to continually move those little handy, quote unquote, appliances. You can leave them plugged in. The clearance under the cooktop and under the sink is visible here. The doorway, I'm not sure if it's readily apparent. The little opening door is standing vertically towards us, and it can be retracted in there out of the way. Also, there is no platform installed under there. You know, the place where most of the cleaning bottles and those kinds of things stand, and water gets on it, and then soap gets on it, and it chipboard in most cases. It doesn't last very long. You're better off to have your nice tile floor take care of those kind of things. It's easier to maintain. Okay, next please. Oh, one more, sorry. Can we go back? Under the sink, the plumbing is a little bit difficult to see perhaps, but the offset is turned not the typical way, and this keeps it closer to the wall and gives more knee clearance. As well, the location of the waste pipes coming into the room is set a bit lower so that future adaptation of counter height is easy to achieve without having to make a plumbing change. Thank you. Here's a illustration on the bottom left that indicates an ideal kitchen that has many features that really make it easier for the older residents. There's a variety of work surface heights, both counter, pull-out boards, and little mobile cart. Also, please note the color contrast strips. This is a rather old version of cabinet work, and we see it on the HGTV series. This is the thing that's definitely got to go because it's dated. But don't jump to that, because there are some advantages to having those color contrast edges for people with low vision, as well as handles that are easily seen and grasped as well. Thank you. Next one. This side open wall oven should be in everyone's home. Being at waist height, there's no need to bend down and lift that 25, 35-pound turkey roaster with all the hot fats and juices and spill it. Not only do you have to reach down and lift it up, you have to reach across the oven door, which is in your way. So a side opening wall oven should be in every senior's kitchen. And I won't even mention about microwaves, because they're totally unusable above the range. You're going to burn yourself so badly that it's ridiculous. You'll notice that just underneath the range there's a pull-out board to receive the hot cooking pots. That can also serve as a handy cutting board for someone sitting down. Next, please. We'll take a quick look through the bathroom. This is an overhead view of a tiled bathroom with a central floor drain. This permits a curbless shower, and many of the elderly people, like myself, find that bathing in a commode chair or using a bath bench is much more convenient than climbing in and out of a tub. And some of us even have wheelchairs and other machines that you can take in there and wash off at the same time. Not quite like a car wash, but similar. Next one, thank you. This is a shot during construction to show how easy it is at that time to reinforce all the walls, so that all three walls adjacent to sink, toilet, tub, shower are reinforced. And that permits later installation of grab bars really securely without any worries about safety hazard. and all for the cost of a couple of sheets of 3/4-inch plywood. Next, please. The results can be quite attractive, as we see, and I'm recommending that seniors housing consider the surfacing material in a shower when they build it. The tub surrounds and fiberglass inserts really do not lend themselves well to installing grab bars that are of any kind of strength. So tiled walls not only look quite nice, but they are also much more secure. Thank you. The next one shows you a little more distant shot of that bathroom. There's a small pocket door, freeing up a lot of floor space. The more pocket doors you can get into an adaptable unit, the better, because it really gives you a lot more maneuvering room. Thank you. Next one. This is an overhead view of a small room that's prepared to permit later conversion into 2 rooms. By thinking about the initial construction and having a door at each end of the room, windows at each end, and light switches near each door, it's quite easy to insert a partition in the middle. Next one, please. I'm not sure if the image is very visible, but there's a semi-wall in between there to give you a cutaway view of the small home office at the top and a bed sit on the bottom. So if someone requires a live-in caregiver, the forethought of providing a room of this type permits it quite easily without huge expense. Next one, please. By simply inserting a couple of very basic panels in the middle, you've got your 2 rooms. Thanks. Next, please. This is a project that I referred to earlier. It's in Esquimalt. It's on First Nations territory, very handsome homes, and many First Nations are quite cognizant of the fact that their elders are going to be with them for quite a while, and building in these adaptable aging-in-place features has met good acceptance on a lot of reserves. Next one, please. And on the other end of the scale, even the millionaire's home can accommodate someone who has trouble with carpeting. You can easily maneuver over a parquet floor like that one. And by installing windows and keeping an open floor plan, installing windows lower and keeping an open floor plan, you can permit good usage. Next one, please. The only point to take note of here is that in our research, we did do cost studies, and in 2002 in the Winnipeg area, the cost to build in the flex housing features over the basic cost is about 2%. The extra, if it was 5%, would give you the reusable attic space, but it's not a necessity. Thank you. Next one, please. Here are some of the useful resources that I found helpful, and they'll be visible on the website. I don't know if I added in the publication numbers. Oh yeah, there they are up there. You'll notice I was here yesterday, and I went home last night and edited this slide and a couple of others, because it's a bit hard to see the small fine print at the back. Hopefully it's a little better back there towards the rear today. Okay. The second publication is an interesting little one from the Quebec Housing Authority, arm of CMHC. Bien Pensé is a beautiful little illustrated guide to building adaptable aging-in-place features. And you don't need to speak much French because it's produced by an architect, and the drawings and the numbers are pretty handy. Next, please. Now, I'm going to try and twist your arm to help us implement aging-in-place features. A number of these listed bullets Lifetime Homes in England mandated all new home dwelling construction to include many of these features. The American National Standard Institute and the Americans with Disabilities. Please help. I have one of those. Americans with Disability Act also has some information that's useful for the builders. And I came across an interesting renovation guideline. The Means Guide to Renovation is really quite useful for any of you who are trying to research costs of renovating. In Canada, we have the Human Rights Code, which really doesn't do much to address this. In Ontario, there's the Ontarians with Disabilities Act. It would be nice to have something like that in other provinces. Recently, Vancouver adopted a bylaw, and that has teeth in it, much like the English experience that I pointed out. Vancouver's bylaw will necessitate including in all new dwellings the kind of features that I've been talking about today. BC Building Code has guidelines for those of social conscience, such as the cohousing people and the lifetime home folk and the life-lease folk. The guidelines are there. It's not rocket science. It just needs the awareness of the aging process and the facility and the lack of very significant cost to include the required stuff. Similarly, Richmond and Vancouver, among other communities, have guidelines that assist in that implementation. Just before we go to the last one, I want to spend 1 second to talk a little bit about how municipalities can be key in enabling and implementing some of these features. In many cases, the municipality can bargain with the developer and the builder and offer them something extra, such as greater floor space coverage, more surface area to sell to their customers. And part of that bargain, they can trade it off by requiring some of these features being built in. And in Richmond, I sit on the advisory design panel that looks at rezoning applications. And over the years, the city planners really watch closely and include many of those features. And when the drawings come forward, they have many of the convertibility, adaptability features in them, even in the small 14, 15 unit townhouses. They make provision for converting units for vertical access. Second last slide. Thank you very much for your interest in the subject. The parade is afterwards as soon as the rain stops. And thank you from me.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, our next speaker is Rebecca Siggner, Manager of Research and Planning, BC Housing. Just use that to go up and down, okay?
A little bit short, so I'm on my tippy toes with the microphone here. I hope you can hear me. So modular, I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about modular construction, and we've used that in a couple of our programs at BC Housing, so I want to talk to you a little bit about what's worked, some of the challenges and lessons learned, especially when using this form of construction for seniors. So before I tell you a little bit about our modular programs, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about BC Housing generally. BC Housing develops, manages, and administers a wide range of subsidized housing options across the province. We partner with nonprofit housing providers, other levels of government, health authorities, and community groups to increase affordable housing options for British Columbians in need across the province. So BC Housing also helps bring about improvements in the quality of residential construction in BC and helps strengthen consumer protection for buyers of new homes. So we support seniors along the housing continuum with options including emergency housing, supportive housing, independent social housing, and rent assistance in the private rental market. This is probably totally overwhelming from the back of the room, so I'll talk fast on this slide. We offer 6 programs targeted specifically for seniors. So we'll talk about the HAFI program, assisted living, and seniors rental housing initiative a little bit later on today. But I just also want to draw your attention to 3 of the other programs, one of which is SAFER, which provides rent subsidies to lower income seniors 60 years and older living in the private rental market. Another program is Senior Supportive Housing, which provides additional assistance such as 24-hour response, light housekeeping, and meals in specifically modified units. As well, we have several BC Housing managed and nonprofit operated long-term housing options for independent low-income seniors where rent is geared towards income. So today I want to tell you a little bit more about the programs where we've used modular construction. The first program is the Independent Living BC program. So ILBC provides subsidized assisted living units as a middle option to bridge the gap between home care and residential care for those who need some assistance but don't want or need 24-hour professional nursing care. Subsidized assisted living units provide accommodation, hospitality services such as meals, housekeeping, laundry, recreational opportunities, and 24-hour response, as well as personal care services. People living in subsidized assisted living usually pay about 70% of their net income. And BC Housing and regional health authorities provide subsidies for housing and hospitality services, while regional health authorities fund the personal care services. Applications for this program are accepted through the regional housing authorities. Regional health authorities. So the second program I want to tell you about is this Seniors Rental Housing Initiative. So Seniors Rental Housing Initiative units provide seniors aged 55 and over and people with disabilities with an opportunity to access affordable and independent housing in their communities. The program serves those with low to moderate incomes, and the units are made affordable through all 3 levels of government. Tenants typically pay about 30% of their income for rent. So tenants with low incomes are eligible for rent geared to income, while people who have more moderate incomes, the nonprofit providers may take on some tenants that are with more moderate incomes, and this is in order to cover their operating costs. So tenants with moderate household incomes pay a fixed rent for their unit that's typically below the market rent in the community. So seniors interested in living in homes developed through Seniors Rental Housing Initiative can apply to the Housing Registry, a centralized database of applicants in search of housing, in search of subsidized housing. And the Housing Registry application form is available from the BC Housing Office or on our website. And I have contact information for applicants at the end of the presentation. So what is modular construction? Modular houses are prefabricated buildings that are manufactured in central locations and delivered by flatbed truck to the building site. Site prep, such as foundations and service hookups, can take place while the units are being built indoors in the centralized plant. We used a small number of modular units under our ILBC Independent Living BC program. So those were in Barrier, Ashcroft, and Golden, and we did those units in about 2002. The biggest initiative where we've used modular construction was the Seniors Rental Housing Initiative. This initiative was jointly funded with the federal government, and the federal funding required that the units be completed by March 31st, 2012. So modular was used because it can be done on a faster timeline compared to the traditional on-site stick-build construction. So modular units were used in about 30 sites across the province, and the projects range in size from about 6 to 20 units. And the units are 1-bedroom units that are about 600 square feet in size. So in 2011, we brought together stakeholders involved in the programs where we've used modular construction to get a sense of what are some of the benefits and opportunities, what didn't work so well, and some lessons learned. So today I'll talk to you a little bit about what we heard in that session. So what are some of the potential benefits or opportunities of using modular construction? So modular construction can be more time efficient. The unit construction can take place at the same time as the on-site prep work when weather is not suitable for outdoor construction. Modular housing can also be higher quality. So units are built in a centralized location where each component of the building process is supervised for quality control. Units are also built indoors, which of course protects them from the weather and elements as they're under construction. And units are built to be really sturdy because they have to travel by flatbed truck to get to the site. Modular construction can also be more sustainable. So modular construction involves precise planning and cost around materials, so there's little waste. So because you have all the units being built on an assembly line, whatever's left over from the first unit can be used on the next unit. One of our students actually traveled to one of the sites to get a tour, and he said there was one garbage can in the plant, whereas on a typical construction site you would see a large dumpster or two. So modular construction can also be more cost effective. So the improved time efficiencies can lead to lower carrying costs because the units can be occupied sooner. As well, the reduced waste and the increased energy efficiency can save costs. And the centralized construction can save costs compared to bringing labor into the site, especially in a community where the skilled labor isn't available. So modular construction can actually also be more appealing for neighbors. So some communities were quite concerned about the look of the modular construction, but with the addition of peaked roofs and wood finishes, the units fit in quite nicely into their neighborhoods. And I think I have some nice pictures to show you in some of the later slides as well. So the other thing about modular construction and the reason why it can be appealing for neighbors is that it minimizes disruptions for the neighbors in that there's less traffic coming to the site because a lot of the construction happens indoor at a central plant. So there are, of course, challenges, and one of the big challenges is around transportation. So the units can be jostled on the truck while they're traveling to the site, which can lead to damage. And units and cranes have to travel long distances in some cases, which can be costly. Integrating the modules on site also has its challenges. Units may be finished before the site is ready, which could lead to damage to the unit if it's left sitting out on the site waiting to be assembled, or it could lead to extra storage costs as well. So connecting the service hookups from the units to the site can also be challenging, especially when the units arrive with the drywall and flooring already in place, as units can be damaged as these hookups are connected. You also have to be careful with standard unit designs, as one mistake can easily be repeated as the unit moves quickly down the assembly line. And with standard designs, you also have to keep in mind factors such as various variations in weather and municipal bylaws. Another thing to think about when using modular is responsibility for the repairs. So this can be a bit of a challenge because if the units get damaged in transit or once they're on site, it can be unclear about who is responsible for fixing the unit, the plant or the on-site labor who are doing the assembly. So there are opportunities and challenges in terms of using modular construction specifically to build affordable housing for seniors. So some of the opportunities are one of the main reasons Seniors Rental Housing Initiative focused on building in small and remote communities was to increase the number of affordable housing options for seniors to allow seniors to remain in their communities as they age and their housing needs change. So using modular construction allowed us to build affordable housing units in rural and remote communities where labor was not readily available. According to our cost estimates, it would have been much more costly to bring labor to do on-site construction using the traditional construction forms versus modular, where a lot of the construction happens off-site in a centralized location, especially given that labor would have been brought into these communities for a whole 7 to 8 months using the traditional on-site construction. Care was taken to ensure that the projects were located in neighborhoods with amenities seniors might require nearby. So the modular units used for Seniors Rental Housing Initiative included adaptable features to help seniors age in place. For example, there are shelves, light switches, and electrical outlets that were built at heights easily reached, and bathrooms have grab bars and step-in showers with optional folding seats. However, in terms of challenges, modular units are restricted by the size of the truck that transports them to the site. This meant that units could not be larger than 600 square feet. The size limits meant that the units were not fully accessible, as there was not enough space for a proper turning radius in the bathroom. So a solution could be to place 2 units side by side with an opening between the units to create an 800 or 1,200 square foot unit, but this would make the units less affordable to build and to rent for seniors. So creating level entrances for people with mobility issues was also a bit of a challenge using modular, as we heard from Tom. So modular units have about 10 to 12 inches of flooring that come with the units. So units have to be set into the foundation to create the level entrances. So some of the questions you might ask before considering modular include, is there affordable labor in your community? Does the project timeline require getting a head start by building indoors? How far are the plants from the sites? And what are the costs of getting the units and cranes to the sites? So my next slide just has the contact information. I'm done. Yeah, it has the contact information. So we have the BC Housing website and the phone numbers as well. So I'll turn it over to Karen, or I can let you introduce.
All right. So I know everyone's anxious to go for their coffee break. I'm really nice and quick. I'm Karen from BC Housing, and I'm here to talk about the HAFI program today. So HAFI, Home Adaptations for Independence, this program is geared towards low-income seniors and persons with disabilities, and it's to help make modifications or adaptations to their home to allow them to continue to live in the home safely and independently. It's a new program. It was just launched in January of 2012. To date, we've probably approved about 750 applications and continuing at a rapid speed to approve many more. Eligibility. You can be eligible for assistance for this program if you're a low-income senior or a person with a disability, as I was saying. You're living in your own home or in market rental accommodation. You're an eligible tenant, and if you are an eligible tenant, you have to apply with your landlord, so you have to have your landlord's permission, and you meet all the eligibility requirements. Now, for the eligibility requirements, you need to be a Canadian citizen or landed immigrant and live in BC. Have a permanent disability or diminished ability that makes your daily activities difficult. The adaptations that you're looking for or you're applying for have to be directly related to this disability or diminished ability. We also look at household income. If you own your home, we look at the value of your home. We look at the assets. All of this criteria just varies depending on the city that you live in. The types of adaptations that are eligible are listed here. Some of the things that Tom was speaking about earlier, those are also eligible. By no means is this it. The list goes on and on. We find that most people apply for walk-in bathtubs or flooring because they've got mobility issues. We don't cover supportive care or portable aids. We don't do appliances, and the program can't cover any sorts of structural repairs or roofs and maintenance work, heating. Now, this program, it's a maximum of $20,000 that's available for adaptations. There's an additional $20,000 that's available for underlying deficiencies that would be things that are directly related to the modifications that you're applying for. The assistance is in 2 ways. So if you're receiving $5,000 or less, it's a grant that's forgiven in a year. And if you're receiving up to the $20,000, then it's a forgivable loan that's earned over 3 years. And the way you earn it back is you just have to live in the home for those many years. And once your term is up, then you've earned it back. To receive the assistance, you can go to our website and you can download the form and the application, or you can contact us, walk into any BC Housing office and receive the information. All of this is our contact information. I'm hoping that you guys are going to go back and spread the word about the program, because we've got lots of funding available and are trying to spend it in the next little while. So now coffee time for everybody, I guess.
On behalf of everyone here, I want to thank this panel of speakers, very interesting. and provocative talks.